Look, it can happen to anybody. You put your foot on a banana peel, you slip and fall. But it takes a whole other genius to put the peel down yourself and somehow find a way to slip on it. That's what Milan did today. They went into the Champions League round, the final match day, sitting in 6th place and somehow manufactured a way to fall all the way to 13th spot into the playoff round. And let me tell you, this is not just a loss of 7 spots. This is also a loss of 17 million euros for the club. And we'll break down all the disastrous things that went wrong today. And once again, it's the new concept, the good, bad, the ugly. Somehow I have to keep bringing this concept back over and over again because every single game, something ridiculously ugly is happening. And one personal note, please be mindful at the end of the video, I have an important announcement around the channel. So make sure once you watch the video, you don't miss out on that part. So let's kick things off with some few handful of rare things that happened that were good for today's match. I think the first one's gonna have to be the performance yet again of Strajna Pavlovic. Ever since I brought on this concept of the good, the bad, the ugly, I've kicked off almost every video with Pavlovic up top. And it was no different for him again today. The guy just has a different type of intensity when he plays for Milan as of late. He's probably the only player that you can look on the team and never have this doubt that he's not putting in all his effort. And he does it on both sides of the field too. He's a center back, but he actually tried to do something even in attack for Milan. There were a few times that he bailed out both center backs, Tomori and Matteo Gabbia, and in the latter stage of the game when Milan was desperate for goals, the coach asked Tomori to sit back, and it was Pavlovic who was constantly in the box. The amount of times that he headed the ball for a player or passed the ball to create a goal from was impressive to see. And I think at the end of the day, we have to ask this question. How is it that arguably the best player of the last 3 matches was closest to the exit door for Milan? This is the part that I don't understand. A lot of the reports are suggesting that the match against Girona was going to be his last game that he plays for Milan. Now, if the reports are to be believed, that means that arguably the best player of the last 3 matches was the closest to the exit door, and all the other players that haven't been playing well are still sitting around here comfortably. And that naturally puts a question mark on the management as to how they had decided that this is the guy that we're going to get rid of the fastest, when that is the guy seems to be most ready and most intent on making all the sacrifices possible physically for your team. The second good thing that happened today was the performance of Christian Pulisic. As I said, once again, the 2 players that play with the most intensity on your team, arguably the ones that are also fit. There are other guys who play with a lot of intensity, like Reijnders, like even Fofana for that matter, but we're going to come to them a little bit later as to what's going on with them. But Pulisic does the job that he's asked to do, at least from an energy standpoint. Now, from a creator, from an attacking standpoint, I felt like Pulisic had a really weak first half. There really wasn't anything of substance that he did. If anything, he was a liability a few of the times. There was an opportunity that Milan had on their left flank, close to the corner flag. A lot of Milan players are loaded up into the box, and all you needed was for Christian to pick up the ball and put a cross in. But somehow, he allowed a defender who was far away from him to be able to get close and take possession away. And the same thing happened a little bit later, this time on his own flank, on the edge of the box. Milan with bodies loaded into the box. You expect Pulisic with his right foot to be able to, whip a cross in. Somehow he once again loses possession and Dinamo Zagreb went on the counterattack. However, then the good part of Christian, somehow from that position, that was just a high quality goal from Christian. Pulisic to Tomori. Fikayo. Pulisic! For him to be able to pick up the ball, I think it was Tomori who actually made a really good pass to Christian. Somehow he managed to pick up the ball, turn around, take a shot from a very tight angle. You got to say this, that their goalkeeper wasn't very strong. He may have actually been the weak link on that team. But for Christian to take a shot from there, go to the near post and be able to get it into the back of the net was really impressive and seemed like it might actually be the catalyst to start something for this Milan team. And even further on, that penalty that Milan won, that pass was a great ball dished out from Pulisic to Leao. In my opinion, I don't know how that was ruled off. A lot of people, I guess, are split in their opinion. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Probably should have been a penalty that stood. But the main creator of that opportunity for Leao was Christian, and that's how the penalty was eventually won. But you have to say, after those 2 moments, yes, Pulisic became a little bit better, but this this uncharacteristic, touch of him today to lose the ball a few times was showing even in the second half, even after he had scored the goal and almost won us a penalty. But still, at the end of the day, he's still the one rare good thing that happened in Milan's attack today. Which brings us to the bad, and this list of bad is going to be long. Let's kick things off with Fikayo Tomori. Painful to watch. He actually looked a little bit better on the right flank somehow. Actually, I don't even think he was very effective on the right flank. He definitely couldn't help out Milan much in attack. He was a little bit better when it came to defense because he had the coverage still of Gabbia and Pavlovic to his side. But once he was switched to the center back role, it was frustrating. And in the second half, there was one moment around 49th minute. I think this was when Dinamo Zagreb may have even scored a goal, but it was chalked off as a handball in the lead up of the goal. But the way that Tomori was appealing for the handball instead of running at the defender to at least be able to stop him was really frustrating to see, because if for some reason his vision was wrong and he was incorrect in thinking that that's a handball and it was actually clean off the guy's chest or something and it fell and it was a goal, then you just have a defender who's just yelling at the referee, looking back instead of looking forward and trying to stop their attacker. And that bothered me about Fikayo, where it's like, okay, it's fine. If it's a handball, VAR will overturn it. But your job as a defender is not to play the referee's role. Your job as a defender is to run and defend. And then it's the goal that he conceded, or the role that he played in the goal that was conceded. The way that he defended Piazza, there was no closing down. His position was off. He just looked like a player who shouldn't be in that position whatsoever. Just watch the replay of that, look square at Tomori, and you'll see a player who does not understand exactly what's happening. His initial positioning was bad, and eventually when their attacker had the ball, he did virtually nothing to be able to stop him from taking a shot. He didn't close him down. He didn't cut off his angles. It was all their attacker that was dictating where he's going to move, not the center back closing down angles to be able to stop him from taking a shot. See that overcommitment? Oh my God, Tomori, what the are you doing, man? Why are you guys pushing in? Who pressed in there? Terracciano, you... And then the other guy that was involved in that goal. I have to put Terracciano under the bad category. In that particular moment, it was actually him who vacated the spot that he was supposed to be covering. The fact that Milan had Yunus Musah sent off on the right flank means that there was already a hole sort of on the right flank. Terracciano was supposed to be making sure that he handles that area, but instead of handling this area, they had an attacker over here. If I'm the Milan goal, they had an attacker over here, and instead of just covering this area and marking this player or just being watchful of what's happening, Terracciano decided to close him down, leaving this player completely vacant. They played the ball around and just passed it into open space to this guy, and eventually they ended up scoring the goal. So it was first Terracciano who opened up the gate for Dinamo Zagreb to be able to play the ball in, and then it was hopeless defending from Fikayo Tomori that resulted in that goal. The next bad thing that happened from today's game is also becoming a theme for the season and the recent past. You have to put it for Theo Reijnders. Just nowhere to be found. Wasn't a disastrous performance like Tomori or Gabbia or other players we're going to be talking about later. It just wasn't good enough. He wasn't there in attack. He wasn't really there in defense. A complete shadow of a performance. And when you're playing an important match like you're playing today, a win today would put you in 6th place in the Champions League standings. Free up your February month. You have to focus on Champions League in March now. You can just focus on Serie A and, gaining that momentum and picking up those points while watching Juventus play in those knockout rounds. You now have a bit more free time, but no, Milan wasn't going to make it easier, and their leaders weren't going to make it easier either. Theo Reijnders, as I said, was nowhere to be found in defense or in attack, and that's why he's one of the worst players in the field today. The next bad thing, I'm gonna honestly put Fofana in this. Now with Fofana, I'm a little bit more hesitant because I know how much mileage Milan is putting on him. It's the same defense, to be honest, of even Theo Reijnders. Theo has not, as I was tweeting with somebody, Theo has not had a backup in this team for like 4 seasons now. We've been just putting miles on this guy and just asking him to go run back and forth. You play well, we say good things to you. You play bad, we criticize you. Back and forth. I mean, it's a human being at the end of the day. How much can a player play without a single competent backup to be able to come and fill in your role? And you kind of get the same sense about Youssouf Fofana today. He was not good on a defensive standpoint. He wasn't able to close down their bodies fast enough, and his passing was painful to watch at times. He was putting in the wrong passes. He's also making this decision to take shots from outside the box too much. Most of his shots are not even remotely close. They're not even forcing a save out of the goalkeeper. They're just going into the stands over and over again, match after match, but he still doesn't stop. And to me, partly, that is also a sign of a player that is just tired. It's usually at the end stage of a game where players are getting tired, where they start launching these rockets. And you feel like Fofana's doing that almost halfway through the game because he probably is running on 2 tired legs by now. And you got to put the same thing on Tijani Reijnders too. And I think something that Sempre Milan, I believe, said was perfect about Reijnders, that somewhere around the 20-minute mark, this guy starts to look like he's played for about 90 minutes. And that is going to happen to any player. If you keep making them play and expect that these guys are going to play 90 minutes in every match, you're going to either injure them or you're going to have performances like you saw today. And this is something that we've seen constantly in the recent past. He doesn't have the legs under him to put in consistent performances like he was during the first half of the season. He didn't just suddenly forget to play football. He had great form going through. Is it a coincidence that it was there during the first half of the season when the players are still a lot more fresh from the offseason? And suddenly he's playing poorly? Do we just think he forgot to play that well? Or is there a possibility that a guy that is being asked to play so many minutes might just be tired? Then there's Alvaro Morata and Tammy Abraham. I don't even want to have separate categories for these guys because they play the exact same way. They drop back, help out a little bit, but when it comes to finishing, they're absolutely painful to watch. It was the same thing for Morata today. He had a really good opportunity, I think around the 14th minute, 14 and a half minutes, he could have scored a goal, took a first-time shot. It was a shot on target, but the goalkeeper stopped it right away. Tammy Abraham was even less involved in my opinion. There was one point in time, and I even tweeted this out because it annoyed me a lot, because Strajina Pavlovic, there was a cross that came in and Pavlovic sort of got in the way of Tammy, and Tammy started yelling at Pavlovic like that was my ball. And in my head, I'm thinking, dude, you really think you're really trying to convince us right now that if that ball had fallen to you, you would have turned around, dribbled past a few players and scored a goal? Because if anything, we've seen Pavlovic help out a little bit more on attack. Remember the match against Parma? We've seen him help out a little bit more on attack than we've actually seen Tammy help out. To me, if it isn't obvious to the management, seeing the strikers play the way that they are, that they are not your answers to scoring goals, I'm really not sure what's going to wake them up. Which is why the final bad category is filled in by the management. And this is the tweet that I put out after the match was completed. We didn't really deserve it, guys. Can we really say that this team is one of the 8 best teams in all of Europe? Don't you think if we would have finished in 8th in the top 8, specifically if we would have finished in 6th place if Milan had won today's game, there would be this inflated sense of self-worth that, oh yeah, look at us, 6 out of 36 teams in the Champions League standings. We're one of the top 8 teams. We're doing a good enough job here. We don't need to sign any new players. We have a good enough squad here. Imagine if Milan, after the kind of wins that they've had against Parma in the Supercoppa, against Inter and Juventus, coming back from 1-0 down or 2-0 down, and that would have happened today with a man advantage to the opposition, the upper brass, in my opinion, would have been like, oh, we definitely don't need to make signings. Clearly, these guys can do it. We just need to make sure they do it from minute 1 instead of waiting till the 90th minute to pull off these results. At the end of the day, Milan pretty much finished where they deserve to finish, which is in playoff rounds, because they're good enough to be a playoff team, not one of the top 8 teams in Europe. The second massive part, the bad thing for this team, and this is the one that could actually wake up the management a little bit, maybe, is the fact that the Rossoneri could have won 24 million euros today if they had made it in the top 8. 24 million euros. But the fact that they finished in the playoff rounds, they get around 7.5 million euros. So they lost about 17 million euros by not finishing in the top 8. That's where it's going to hurt the management. That's this tweet that was put out by one of the founders of Sempre Milan. It's going to give some in the top brass sleepless nights, as they probably deserve him. With the upper brass, we all know finances is what truly wakes them up. So losing out on 17 million euros, that's going to be a massive hit for the club. And the reason why they're in the bad category is because, as I mentioned, Fofana, Reijnders, Theo, there are a lot of criticisms for these players. Fair enough. But have we given these guys competent backup options? Aren't we putting too much mileage on these players? Both Reijnders and Fofana had a great first half of the season. How come they've suddenly just disappeared? Do you really think it's because both of them just forgot how to play the sport? Or do you think there's a possibility that they're just both really tired? And when your players are tired, when your strikers like Tammy Abraham and Alvaro Morata are not scoring goals, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to get better strikers. You're supposed to get more backup options in the midfield, so your main good quality players are not going to get too tired or not going to pick up any injuries. But at the end of the day, when you take these chances, it's the 29th of January today. We've only signed Kyle Walker after already having spent money on a right back in summer of 2024. That's the only one signing that Milan has. So if you're going to make that decision, you're going to make that choice to not replenish your striker role, you're going to make the decision to not replenish your midfield role, then you're going to have to accept the fact that you lose out on 17 million euros. Which brings us to the uglies. Well, two ugly things happened today. As I said in the intro, to place a freaking banana peel down and find a way to slip on it yourself, that's just bad. And it kind of was a slip that Matteo Gabbia took today. To Pavlovic. Oh, Gabbia! Oh my God, Gabbia. He actually looked a little bit shakier today because when Pavlovic was playing with Gabbia, I felt like Pavlovic was playing better. But for him to make that mistake and for it to result in a goal, that has to be the ugly moment for Milan's game in the first half. Talk about harming your own cause, man. You're starting a game that you're expected to win, and somehow you find every way possible to be able to screw it up. It started off with Matteo Gabbia, but it's truly the second ugly that we have to talk about, and that's Yunus Musah. Last two videos, the amount of times I've complimented this guy, I feel like a fool right now. I don't think I'm wrong. I do think he's a good player, but if this is the way that he makes his decisions, I don't want him at the club. He single-handedly changed the outcome of today's game. Once Milan went down a goal, they still had all the chances to be able to come back and win it. But once they went down a man, the chances were less than half of what they were before. And for him to first pick up a yellow card, for trying to pick up a player who's on the ground because they're claiming to have an injury. When we watched the replay, he actually did have an injury. He did kick his foot into the studs of, I think, Alvaro Morata. So their player was actually legitimately on the ground because he was hurt. And Musah, I don't know what brain fade he had, grabbing the guy by his arm, trying to lift him up. Dude, there's more than an hour left in the match. Why are you doing that in the first place? You pick up a yellow card for that. And then knowing that you're on a yellow card, for him to be running behind their attacker. Pavlovic, I believe, already helped clear the ball away, and for him to then try and hold him, even though the ball was clearly rolling towards Maignan, what in the world was he thinking? The fact is, the guy wasn't thinking. He sometimes just does what he wants to do. A massive chunk of today's loss, a massive chunk of Milan now having to play 2 games in February, a massive chunk of Milan losing out on 17 million, falls on the shoulders of the 21-year-old Yunus Musah. And then there's Rafael Leao. To me, I could have put it in the bad category, but I'm going to put it in the ugly category. I don't think in the first maybe 20 minutes of the game he was too bad. He was actually one of the only creative outlets that Milan had. But to put in a performance like this in a must-win match for Milan is just not good enough. He was a shadow of himself today. He did not find himself in any position to be able to score a goal or an assist a goal for a teammate. And to put him in this category is more because of the context of the game, not the individual performance itself. What Gabbia and Musah did, Leao didn't quite do. But when you have a player that I believe has picked up, 4 man of the match trophies in this Champions League stage round, and that player today in a must-win match is a complete no-show, that's not good enough. The team doesn't deserve that, and the fans don't deserve that. 2 quick additions to the bad category would be 2 of the substitutes that came on, Samuel Chukwueze and Noah Okafor. The fact that both of these guys had opportunities to score goals and they rushed both of their shots, that's the only thing I want to put in the bad category here. It was so frustrating to see that Noah Okafor got such a great opportunity to at least hit the target, and he just scuffed it and tried to take a first-time shot. They both could have just patiently taken their time. Even when you watched Chukwueze miss his chance, all that Conceição on the sidelines was saying, calm down. Why are you guys rushing your shots? And that's all that I was yelling at the screen. These two guys should have done better with the chances that they had. And there you have it, guys. That's the good, bad, and ugly for today's game. A missed opportunity for Milan that the players, the management, and the financial department of Milan all are going to be ruining. Everybody's going to have to look at what they did today and reflect and desperately make improvements starting all the way from the top. Now, that one personal note that I talked about in the beginning of the video, thank you for sticking around till this point. Now, the main news is that from about February 10th onwards till March 11th, 12th, I won't be putting out any videos. I'm going to be overseas. I'll try my best to make a video or two from there, but I will have a bunch of guest hosts coming in and giving their match reviews to you guys. So I don't want to leave you without any content for 1 month. I might cover the Champions League matches now that they're going to be in the month of February. But when it comes to most Serie A games, there's going to be a guest creator for the channel. I've already started to talk to a few people, but if you know of anyone that you want to come on this channel and make a video while I'm away for about a month, make sure to let me know in the comment section. And that's it, guys. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and on Twitter at FootballKush. I'll see you guys in a few days. And as always, even after a loss, Forza Milan. Grazie mille. Ciao tutti. Did you know Benito Mussolini put an end to the existence of Inter Milan? And the only reason why AC Milan is called what it is because of the fascist leader? What led to the breakup of AC Milan and Inter Milan in that restaurant behind the Duomo is fascinating in itself. But what is even more fascinating